If your heart and soul is thus engaged, then you will come to me. You will attain me, Krishna is saying. So, now if you see here in the 1865, what is saying? Mam evaishyasi satyam te. Truly you will come to me. Why? Pratijane, I am declaring to you. Priyo sime, you are dear to me. So basically, here the two verses, 2.5 of the verse lines are the same. But the last 1.5 lines, there is a difference, and that is hugely significant. Say, suppose somebody wants to sell a house. Then, now they are a little skeptical about the capacity of a potential buyer's budget. Will they really pay in time, or will this get endlessly dragging out? So they say that, if you make sure that you get this, give this deal, you put this much amount, you show this, you have this capacity, if you fill these papers, submit these papers, then this house will be yours. So the onus is placed on the buyer. You have to do this, then the house will be yours. But suppose the seller is desperate to sell the house. And the seller says, this is really a good buyer. This buyer will actually preserve my house, they won't demolish it, they won't sell it to some big company who will just build a condo or something like that, or make this into corporate area. They will preserve the house. They are not desperate to sell the house to that person. And they will say that, if you just get this, I guarantee you, the land deed, the property deed will be in yours by tomorrow today evening. In the second case, what is happening is, the onus is on the seller. Or to go back to the medical metaphor, the doctor may say, if you take this treatment properly, you take these medicines like this, you avoid this kind of food, you follow these rules, you do this kind of exercise, and if you do this whole treatment diligently, you'll be cured. That's the onus is being placed on the patient. You have to do all these things. But if the doctor really cares for the patient, and the doctor wants the patient to take the treatment, and doctor says that, if you just do this, I guarantee you, you will be cured. So in that case, what is happening is, the doctor is taking the responsibility much more. So here in 1865, Krishna is taking the onus on himself. He says, Mam evaishyasi, you will attain me. You will attain life's perfection. Satyam te, truly. I guarantee you that. Why? Because Pratijane priyo sime. You are dear to me. For me, Krishna, this is not just like a intellectual educational engagement. Okay, you give a class, get some applause and go away. For Krishna, Arjuna is his personal friend. And Krishna is invested in Arjuna's fate. And therefore, he is assuring him, you just do this, you will come to me. And then if you go to the next verse, this is a well-known verse. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchah. So now this is one of the sweetest verses of the Gita. At the same time, this is quite a complicated verse. I was in America. There's a Hindu program on occasion of Gita Jayanti. So there they had organized some, not a ISKCON program, their kids were reciting some Gita verses. And when they came to this chapter, they recited it as Sarva adharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. So, Sarva adharman parityajya, giving up all adharma. So then I asked the organizer after that, why are they reciting this adharman? So he quoted the same book that Gaurang had mentioned yesterday. There's this author who written Bhagavad-gita as it was. So, there are many people who try to ride piggyback on the popularity of Prabhupada's Bhagavad-gita. So he said, this particular author, he argues that actually Krishna comes to establish dharma. So why will Krishna tell everybody to give up dharma? Isn't it? So he says, over the generations when the Bhagavad Gita was reproduced, in the past there was no printing press or Xerox machine, so people had to manually write it down. So during the process of this pathantar, it's called writing it down again and again, somebody forgot to put an So it is Krishna was telling Sarva Adharva Parityajya, but that was forgotten. So now I am putting back that So therefore it is Bhagavad Gita as it was. So now that's a fanciful theory. There's a logic to it. But in the Bhagavad Gita, the word dharma has at least 7 different meanings. And dharma can mean duty. When Arjuna is asking 2.7, Pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. I want to know what is the right thing to do, what is my duty. And dharma can mean social order. This is the sense in which Krishna uses in 4.8 and 9. That whenever dharma goes down, dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. And then if you go to 14.2, mamasa dharmamagataha. So people will attain the nature similar to mine. So like that, there are many different meanings of the word dharma. So we have to consider which meaning is being spoken over here. So the idea that sarva adharman parityajya, that does not make any sense in the context. Because Arjuna started the whole Gita with asking, what is dharma? So say if we go from India to America and we have hired a car and to drive the car. So before we start driving, maybe we ask a friend who is with us, what are the laws over here? And that friend says, don't break any laws. And that's a redundant point. Because right now, in the beginning only we're asking, what are the laws? So Krishna does not have to tell Arjuna, give up adharma. Because the whole Gita is spoken because Arjuna wants to know what is dharma. So when Krishna is using the word dharma, he is not using it in the sense of social order. That's the context which this person puts it. He is not using it in terms of nature. He's saying that Arjuna, dharma here refers to conceptions of duty. We all have duties, and sarva dharman parityajya. So Arjuna, you have your conceptions of duty. You remember the Gita started with Arjuna in an ethical crisis between 2 duties. Which are the 2 duties? Kshatriya dharma and Kula dharma. Yes. The warrior's duty, he should fight. And Kula dharma, this is my family, how can I fight against them? I don't fight. So you have these 2 conceptions of duties. Krishna says, put them aside. Sarva dharman parityajya. Then what you do? Mam ekam sharanam. You just surrender to me. Why surrender to me? He says, aham tvam sarvapapebhyo. I will free you. If any complexity comes up, I'll free you from all sinful reactions. And then ma shujaha. So what this means is that consider, say, if you are working in a company. Now sometimes the same employee might be in 2 teams. So one team is working on one project, another team is working on another project. And say both the team leads want the employee to do something. And then that employee is torn, should I do this or should I do that? Now, if there's this big company and there's the CEO of the company. Now, if the employee talks with the CEO, or the CEO is accessible to the employee, the CEO says, okay, you do this. But what about that other team lead? He says, I'll take care of that. You don't worry about it. So what Krishna is saying is that we are all parts of many units in this world. So for Arjuna, one team that he is a part of is a part of a particular kula. Then he is a part of a particular varna. And from the varna, he has a Kshatriya dharma. And from the kula, he has his kula dharma. So Krishna is saying that we all belong to various units. So we belong to a particular gender, we belong to a particular economic group, particular region, particular religion. But ultimately, all the groups that we belong to are contained within the supreme whole, that is Krishna. So Krishna is the whole that contains all other wholes that we belong to. See, we may belong to a family, and say when we are born, our mother bears us in her womb, and then when we are born, mother feeds us the breast milk. That's one of the most intimate acts of affection. And yet, the mother does not do anything special to produce milk in her breasts. The same God who sent a child through her womb into this world also sends milk in her breasts. So basically, say a child in one sense belongs to the mother. But the mother is also provided by God. So God is not just one other circle. God is the circle that sustains all other circles, all other groups, all other wholes that we are part of. So if we are serving God, then even if we neglect some other services, it doesn't matter. It's like all the teams in the company are working under the CEO. If we are doing what the CEO is saying, then we don't have to worry about what this team lead is saying and what that team lead is saying. So in that sense, Krishna is saying, I take liability. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami. I will free you from sinful reactions. And ma shuchaha. Do not lament, do not fear. You remember the purpose of the Gita in the first session I talked about is that Arjuna is in distress, to remove Arjuna from distress. Ashochan was the first instructive word spoken by Krishna in the Gita. And the last word is Ma Shuchaha. So the full circle has come over here. And Krishna is concluding by saying, Arjuna, do not fear. Just do my will and things will work out. I will take care of things, Krishna is saying. So, I talked about the staircase from confusion to clarity right at the beginning. And we talk about the 3 steps in the staircase: A, C, and D. So, act. So, A is accept that distress is unavoidable in the world. This is an insight that comes from jnana. This is not jnana yoga, but by jnana, by using our intelligence, we understand that distress is going to come. Everybody is going to face distress in life. That is just the nature of the world. And anybody who tries to avoid distress, they will end up increasing the distress just by that effort, by that attempt to decrease the distress. Now C was cultivate. Cultivate a meaningful purpose that makes distress bearable. Distress is unavoidable in the world, but we all when we face distress, say if we like a job, then okay, although job involves hard work, job involves me doing this, that, but I like that job. I find some meaning. I'm going to do something of value in the world. Then that makes the distress bearable. So this involves action. It's not karma yoga, but cultivating a purpose involves doing something tangible. So distress cannot just be wished away. We have to work to do something meaningful in life. And the more we are doing something meaningful, then the distress becomes bearable. And the last is transcend. Even when we are doing something meaningful, still distress will be there. So transcend duality and distress by absorption in the Lord. By absorption in the Lord. Transcend. So this is the insight coming from Bhakti. So whatever challenges we face in life, these 3 steps, I'll explain how they apply, but these 3 steps accept that there is no easy way ahead in life. There will always be difficulty. But we can cultivate a meaningful purpose. That, okay, I am in this particular situation, this is what I can do. And then while we are doing this, still there will be this feeling of irritation, dissatisfaction, even there can be devastation. Transcend that by being absorbed in the Lord, by remembering the Lord, by knowing that the Lord is with us, within us. So another way to explain this is that broadly Bhakti has 2 different dimensions to it. This is the material world or material level of reality, and this is the spiritual level of reality. So now most people think that, or most people who understand the Bhagavad-gita, they think that the purpose of life, purpose of practice on Bhakti is to leave this world and go to the spiritual world. And here there is Krishna. And then we attain Krishna there. Well, yes, there is some truth to that. But what the Gita says is, Krishna doesn't just exist in the spiritual world. In fact, Krishna exists everywhere. In fact, the world exists within Krishna. The world is also real. Krishna is so concerned about the world that Krishna, to fix the world, descends to this world. So, serving Krishna in this world is also service to Krishna. So, we don't just turn away from the world to focus on Krishna. We serve Krishna in this world. So, this is Mam Anusmara. That is, turn toward Krishna. And fight in the world, that is Yudhya. Fight. So remembering Krishna is bhakti, but serving in this world is also bhakti. So we can say remembering Krishna is our bhakti sadhana. Serving Krishna in this world is our bhakti seva. So sadhana and seva, both are important. When Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan in the 1960s, he could have stayed in Vrindavan and he could have peacefully lived there, chanted Krishna's names and returned back to Krishna. But Prabhupada wasn't in Vrindavan, but he turned toward the world. He came to the West. He went to the West. I was in America sometime before, so that's why I used the word came by mistake. But he went to the West. He went to America and he shared Krishna's message. So Prabhupada saw the world also as an arena for service. So Krishna's message in the Bhagavad-gita is not that we renounce the world. It is that we connect with Krishna, and then we engage in the world and serve Krishna in the world. So that's why Krishna uses the word Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So Vraja can mean go. And some commentators try to use that to say that means, actually Krishna is saying surrender to the impersonal. Go and surrender to the impersonal. But that makes no logical sense. Because what does Arjuna do after that? Does Arjuna run away from battlefield to find some impersonal to surrender to? No, Arjuna stays with Krishna. Arjuna says, Karishye Vachanam Tava. It doesn't say Karishye Vachanam Brahmam. Something like that. He says, so that Vraja means go, it's more of the mood of surrender. Arjuna is facing Krishna now. When he is hearing the Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna now is the time to turn toward the world. Now is the time for you to serve me in this world. So Krishna talks about these levels in 12.8 and 9, Bhakti Sadhana. And Bhakti Seva he talks about in 12.10 and 11. And he says both of these levels are required for us in our service to Krishna. So Bhakti is not world rejecting. Sometimes we say, okay, this world is a place of distress, just leave this world and get out of this world. Well, yes and no. This world is a place of distress, but if we serve Krishna in this world, the distress here can significantly be decreased for ourselves and for others. So the world, you could say, the world is like a hospital. Now in a hospital, pain is going to be there. A hospital means pain is going to be there. But the pain in the hospital can be minimized or it can be maximized. If nobody follows the doctor, nobody does what they are meant to do, then everybody's pain will increase. So while pain is unavoidable, the quantity is variable. We can either increase it or we can decrease it. And by learning to serve Krishna in this world, we can, each one of us, can minimize the misery that we experience in the world. So in this context, now let me explain this ACT once again. So in the 11th chapter, an example is given in 11, 28 and 29. There are two metaphors given for how people live and die. That is, there, in the 11, what is the 11th chapter about? Does anyone remember? The universal form. So in the universal form, Krishna is saying that there are some people who are like moths. They enter into fire. And there are others who are like a river entering into an ocean. Yatha nadinam bahavam vega. He says, let's recite this verse. Yatha nadinam bahavam vega. Yatha nadinam bahavam vega. Samudrameva bhimukha dravanti. Samudrameva bhimukha dravanti. Tatha tavami naraloka veera. Tatha tavami naraloka veera. Vishanti vaktranya vivijwalanti. Vishanti vaktranya vivijwalanti. So what is he saying over here? That he's talking about two modes of living and dying. The moth going to fire and the river going towards the ocean. And one of the, in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, Ramacharya is the prominent acharya. And one of the subsequent prominent teachers in the Sri Vaishnava tradition is Vedanta Deshika. And Vedanta Deshika has written a sub-commentary on the Gita. And there he unpacks these metaphors. And he says that when a moth moves towards fire, it does no good to anyone. Certainly not to the moth, not to anyone else. The moth just gets burned and it is futile for everyone. Now when the river moves toward the ocean, what happens is the river benefits everyone. While it is going towards the ocean, it provides water to all the life forms that are on the banks of the ocean, banks of the river. So similarly, he says, those who are great souls, they want to attain the Lord, but that doesn't mean they neglect the world. While they are going toward the Lord, they are like rivers who are nourishing the life forms on its path. They benefit everyone. So each one of us is like a river. And sometimes bhakti is thought of, okay, this world is a place of distance, we just have to go back to God. Like the river has to go to the ocean. That's true. But the path by which the river goes to the ocean can be a path by which so many people can be benefited. So what we do in this world also matters. And each one of us, Krishna wants us to contribute and make a difference in this world itself. So that's why Krishna is telling Braja, turn toward the world and act in this world. So let's understand this from other perspective here. So if we consider Krishna, the Lord is here, and we are here. We are here in the world. So now, what we have, these are gift from Krishna to us. We may have certain abilities, we may have certain interests, we may have certain resources, we may have singing ability, we may have wealth, we may have managerial skills, whatever it is. What we have is a gift given to us by Krishna. And what we do with what we have, that is our gift to Krishna. And in this way, the world is included in our loving reciprocation with Krishna. Krishna has given us gifts so that we can ourselves give gifts, so that we can ourselves become a gift in the mood of service. So, in this vision, our gifts do matter. You remember that diagram where we talked about how initially the world is very big and the Krishna is very small for people. And then Krishna becomes big and the world becomes small. So the world still matters, but in the world we want to serve. See, for most people, their vision is limited to, okay, is color visible? Is visible to you? No. Okay, please try some other color. This won't work actually. So, if we don't have a connection with God, that my gifts are given to me by God, and we don't have the vision that ultimately I am serving God, then what happens is, it's I am doing something in the world and I am expecting something from the world. Now, if that is all that is our focus, then this small worldview, it is going to be a cause of perpetual dissatisfaction. Why? Because three ways. I may feel that what I have, it's not enough. What I am doing, it's not enough. What I am getting, it's not enough. And we see this is basically a cause of chronic dissatisfaction. Now, what I have, now we all have certain abilities, interests, talents, but if we don't see that these are given to us by God, now all that we see is, oh, no, that person is smarter than me. That person is fairer than me. That person is taller than me. That person is like this. That person is like that. We'll always find someone else who is better than we are, and we will always be jealous. We'll always be, if not jealous, we'll be insecure. So what I have, that's not enough. That makes me insecure. And we see a feeling of insecurity, a feeling of inadequacy is such a universal problem in today's world. It's an inferiority complex that is there. And many people may put on a big facade. I'm confident, I'm proud, but their ego is just a cover up for their insecurity. So at one level, if we are only looking at the world and trying to make it big in the world, I feel, life is itself so unfair. I'm trying to study, but to understand this one thing, I have to spend 10 hours, and this person, he can just read 1 hour and get it. Life is so unfair. So what we have is not enough. Then what I am doing with what I have. You can always feel I could be doing more. We start feeling I'm lazy. I'm incompetent. I'm not working hard enough. And not many people feel that, but some people feel that. Because no matter how much we can do, we can always be thinking, second guessing ourselves, oh, only if I had done this at that time, if only I had spoken like that, if only I had grabbed that opportunity. We can be either lazy or we can be lamenting. What I'm doing is not enough. And what I am getting. We may see almost everyone in the world feels undervalued. Now, I am working so hard. Why does my boss not recognize me? Why do my colleagues don't recognize how much work I am doing? I am doing so much for my family. They all take me for granted. They don't respect me. They don't care for me. So, if our vision is fixed on the world, our sense of insecurity, our sense of lamentation, our sense of being undervalued, these will forever keep us dissatisfied. Now, even if someone becomes very famous, even somebody has great talents and they work very hard and they become greatly successful, still, there are two problems. The first is time. Time is the problem. First is whatever we have, it is temporary. Somebody may even become number one, become the number one businessman in the world, number one tennis player, number one cricket player, number one music seller, or songs become number one. But how long is that going to last? It's temporary. Then, it's not temporary, it's insubstantial. That everybody is so much craving for fame, but it is the fame thing, it is there today, it is gone tomorrow. And even when it is there, it doesn't really fulfill the heart. Somebody may have 1 million followers on Instagram, but they can't open their heart and reveal their heart, and they can have a close one-to-one friendship or relationship with them. So, what we get in the world, we are at our core spiritual beings, and the world is a material world. So if we are trying to reciprocate with the world, then whatever we get, it's insubstantial. When Duryodhan had got the kingdom also, that means his scheme had succeeded, and the Pandavas had been exiled to the forest, and he had got their entire kingdom. But still, he was not happy. He said, I want to do something. And then he said, okay, the Pandavas had done a sacrifice, I want to do a sacrifice just like them. And then I'll be happy. So I want to show. He did that sacrifice, but still, it was, there is Nama Yajna. Krishna talks in the 16th chapter. That is to chant the names of God. Nama Yajna. Duryodhana was doing Yajna for Nama. He was doing yajna just for the sake of reputation. But still, that okay, I did this yajna, but I didn't get as many gifts as Duryodhan got. As Yudhishthir got. There is always something like it's insubstantial. It's insufficient. We always feel that there's something missing in my life. And then the very thing. So what I'm looking at, if we live with a materialistic worldview, that means that we see that, okay, I have these abilities, I have to make it big in this world. Then whatever we achieve will be temporary. Even if we achieve it, even while we have it, still it will be insubstantial. And even when we have it, it's okay, it's not insubstantial, it's wonderful. It's actually misery inducing. Misery inducing means that it, in trying to possess it, in trying to hold on to it, we will end up doing activities that will create future misery for us. In the world, quite often, the search for happiness is often the cause of the greatest unhappiness. If you look at addiction, now nobody is born with a cigarette in their mouths. They seek some pleasure. Misery inducing means that the search for happiness, that itself becomes the cause of unhappiness. We can look at our own lives. Many of the things that we did for happiness, they are the things that got us into trouble. Now, this is not always true, but many times it is true. The things that we do for getting pleasure, that is what gets us into trouble. And what is the point of such enjoyment? Can we really call it enjoyment? So, it's temporary, it is insubstantial, it is misery inducing. It impels us in trying to protect it, in trying to preserve it. We end up doing things which will hurt us in the future. So this limited framework that Krishna says, give up this framework. This small worldview where I am here and this is my world. It could be my family, it could be my professional circle, it could be my regional community, it could be even by my religious group. Now, if our vision is only limited to that, there will always be dissatisfaction. It is when we see that actually Krishna has given me some gifts and I am meant to use those gifts in Krishna's service. Then what happens is we understand that life is like a relay race. In a relay race, say the person is carrying a torch. Now they carry that torch up to a particular point, and they hand over the torch to the second person. Then they hand it to the third person. Then they hand it to the fourth person. And maybe it is the 10th person that takes it across the finish line. Now when the 10th person takes it across the finish line, this is the person that will get glory in the world's eyes. And everybody can't be that person. Now what is that determined by? Often that is determined by the karma. So like in a cricket match, when a team wins, there might be a particular player who hits the winning shot. And maybe that image becomes the iconic image. Say India in 2011 we won the World Cup. There is Dhoni who hit the match winning sixer. Now that has become the iconic image of that. Now if you look at that World Cup, Dhoni actually didn't bat at all well throughout the World Cup. Only in the finals he batted very well. But he was the person who took across the finishing line. So some people have that karma. Why will they do that? But does that mean that other team members didn't contribute? They also contributed in their own ways. So in this world, not everyone will get glory. But every single person who has carried that torch, every single person who has played their part in the relay race, they will get glory in God's eyes. So if we are looking for glory in the world's eyes, we will stay dissatisfied. Sometimes you may get it, but you may get it, it will not be enough. Sometimes you may not just not get it. So it is, the Gita says, yes, we work in the world, we carry the torch as long as we have to, as diligently as we can. But ultimately, we are connecting with the Lord. We are not doing this for glory in the world's eyes. We are looking for it so that we can please Krishna. We can connect with Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada was spreading Krishna consciousness across the world. We started at the age of 70, almost 69. And within 10, 11 years, he built 108 temples, went across the world 14 times. And he inspired millions of people to take up to spirituality, to learn to know about Krishna, to love Krishna. And then what was his own consciousness? One of his disciples, he said, Prabhupada's guru was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His father was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He said, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur preached in Bengal. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur preached in India. You preached all over the world. Therefore, you are greater than all of them. And Prabhupada became very grave. Prabhupada said, never think like this. It is, a parent is always pleased with the child as better than them. He said, it is by their mercy, it is by the Lord's blessing that I have achieved what I have achieved. And even in Prabhupada had a spectacular role to play in this multi-generational mission, where he carried the relay race. He carried it very prominently. It was he who spread the spiritual movement all over the world. But he knew he had his part. And for all that he did, there are some things which just fell agonizingly short. Srila Prabhupada fought like a commander to protect and build the temple in Juhu. But he made a promise to the deities, I will build a temple for you. And just 2.5 months, the temple building was just away. And that was the time when Prabhupada's body just collapsed completely. And he departed from the world. Just a short while before that, one of his well-wishers asked him, Swamiji, do you have any last desires? And Prabhupada said, Kuch ichha nahi. Prabhupada could have said, it's so unfortunate. I did it all for Krishna. I built this temple. I want to see this temple being built. And then I'm ready to leave. Prabhupada translated the Bhagavatam. He was in the middle of the 10th canto. The 10th canto is the heart of the Bhagavatam. It is where Krishna Lila is being described. And Prabhupada was there in the 10th canto. Prabhupada could have said, Krishna, just give me a few more years. I'll complete the Bhagavatam. But Prabhupada was not dissatisfied. Why? This was the part that Krishna has given for me. I am doing my part. I have done my part. Now Krishna is calling me back. I'll go back. So we all have parts. We are all a part of a bigger reality, and we all have parts in Krishna's plan. So when we see that bigger picture, then the dissatisfaction that we face, when the world doesn't seem to recognize us, when people don't seem to value us, that won't trouble us so much. So the Gita is telling Arjuna from the world's perspective. Some people will appreciate how vigorously you fight. Some people will criticize you. You fought against your own relatives. Krishna says, don't worry about this. Transcend this comparison, criticism of the world. Know that you are doing this for my sake. So if our vision is worldly vision with material vision, then we become apart. We become apart from Krishna. The Gita says, do not be apart from Krishna. We have a spiritual vision. Be a part of Krishna. Be not apart from Krishna. Be a part of Krishna. Now, what part we have, that will be different for different people. Now, some of us may have a big part in this world, some of us may have a small part. But our satisfaction depends not so much on how big a part we have, it depends on how well we play the part that we have. How well? So most of the times, our ambition is that I want a bigger part. If I am giving a class, why are not more people coming for my class? If I am distributing books, why don't more people take books from me? If I am doing kirtans, why are so many people sitting? Why are people not dancing my kirtans? We can, even in whatever area it is. If you are in professional fields, okay, I am doing this job, I am marketing, I am a doctor, I am a professor. Why are people not appreciating me? We all want a bigger part. But wanting a bigger part, that itself won't lead to happiness. Because that's the endless case. How much bigger part we'll get? Rather, do our part better. That is what will give us happiness. So, if we do our part better, each one of us, from wherever we are, we can find satisfaction in our lives. And this same theme is illustrated in the conclusion of the Gita, that do our part better. See, Arjuna at the end of the Gita doesn't say, I will fight. He says, Karishye Vachanam Tava. His 1873, the last verse spoken, and the last line is, I will do your will. I will do your will. That is, says Krishna, you have a bigger plan and you have some part for me in that plan. I will do my part. Even if it is difficult for me, I will do it. Now, Arjuna's part was such that Arjuna was going to get great victory. And the Gita could have finished at this point in 1873. But there are 5 more verses over there. And those verses are Sanjay speaking to Dhritarashtra. Now, what is the significance of these verses? Actually, through these verses, the teaching of the Gita has been demonstrated. In one sense, when now Krishna speaks the Gita to Arjuna, and there is success, in the sense that Arjuna's heart is transformed. Arjuna is inspired. Arjuna is disheartened. Arjuna becomes convinced. Now Sanjay speaks the same message to Dhritarashtra. Now, is there success over there? There is no success. No. Dhritarashtra is blind before the Gita and he stays just as blind after the Gita also. Now, then is Sanjay speaking the Gita a waste? No. Because Sanjay experiences happiness even without success. How do we know he experiences happiness? That is what he reveals in 76 and 77 verses. Rishyami cha muhurmuhu, rishyami cha punah punah. He says, by speaking the Gita, what happens? He has become inspired. The message of the Gita is playing in his heart. The memory of Krishna is replaying in his heart. And that attachment to Krishna that is established, that remembrance of Krishna in which he has become situated, That is what brings in satisfaction. So, when we act in the world, we accept that there is no easy way, there is going to be distress. But still, Krishna has given me these talents, these abilities, this role. I will cultivate. I will cultivate a meaningful purpose. I will do my part. So, accept in this sense is accept whatever part we have. Our part may be small, our part may be big. But cultivate commitment to our part, dedication to our part. This is a small part, but I will do that part as well as I can. And transcend worldly dissatisfaction by absorption in Krishna. So the worldly dissatisfaction was Sanjay. He could have said, why is Dhritarashtra not understanding? But he didn't bother about that. He was absorbed in the remembrance of Krishna. And by that remembrance of Krishna, he was satisfied. He was enriched. And that is the glory of the message of the Gita. In this, that the Gita can provide us, some of us, by hearing the message of the Gita, by applying the message of the Gita, our role may be like Arjuna. We will get success and happiness. Some of us, we may or may not get success in the worldly sense. Maybe the role that Krishna has for us is small. But we all can get happiness. By success, I mean worldly recognition, worldly reciprocation. Some may get it, some may not get it. But our happiness does not have to depend on that. Because Krishna from within our hearts will enrich us. And in fact, this is what happens eventually even to Arjuna. That Arjuna, right now he is successful. But in the Bhagavatam it is described that when Krishna departed from the world, and Arjuna tried to protect the family of Krishna and he just couldn't. And then Arjuna was devastated. Arjuna was shattered at that time. And then what did Arjuna do? He was in that moment of complete bereavement. So I've written a small poem describing the plight of Arjuna. So that Arjuna, whose arrows had never missed their target, found that his arrows had not even reached their target. That Arjuna, who had defeated an army of all the gods combined, had been defeated by a motley band of cowardly cowbirds. That Arjuna, who had risen to heaven in his self-same body, had seen defeat that felt worse than hell in his self-same body. That Arjuna, who had been repeatedly enriched by Krishna's personal presence, now felt utterly bankrupt by Krishna's absence. That Arjuna, who felt battered and shattered, dejected and rejected, powerless and purposeless. That Arjuna wondered whether Arjuna was even Arjuna without Krishna. That Arjuna then remembered Krishna's words in the Gita. That Arjuna remembered that Krishna was his words in the Gita. That Arjuna remembered Krishna was with him through the words of the Gita. That Arjuna realized with rising relief and trembling awe that he was without Krishna, yet he was still with Krishna. So Krishna Bhagwan ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki Jai. Is there any one question we can take before we stop here and we'll continue afterwards?
You were saying about the 7 types of dharma.
7 types of?
Dharma.
Oh, that's quite a technical question. Okay. I'll send it to you separately. On magitadaily.com, there's an article just for meanings of dharma. I have a website called gitadaily.com. Here, I've written almost 7,000 articles on the Gita. I write one every day. So, almost every verse on the Gita, there is some explanation that is given over there. So, you can go chapter wise and look for it. But if you just search for dharma meanings, you'll find it over there. Okay. Any one question anyone has? Yes, please.
So we discussed that non-violence is a strategy in political sphere. It's not a principle that you have to always follow. So
Especially for administrators of state. No, the police cannot have non-violence as a policy. The military cannot have non-violence as a policy.
So then, what about the other regulative principles? So there are 4 regulative principles: non-violence, truthfulness, cleanliness, and austerity. So are there exceptions for those as well?
Okay. See, non-violence is a principle in terms of we want to commit as less violence as possible. That is definitely there. That's why even when wars would happen, the Kurukshetra war, it happened in a designated place. It was not, no civilians were targeted over there. So the idea is war is unavoidable, violence is unavoidable, but minimize it. So when we talk about non-violence, when we eat food, now animals have far more developed nervous system, their consciousness is far more involved, they feel far greater pain. So you want to avoid animal food, meat. But then when we eat vegetarian food also, plants have consciousness and they also suffer. We may not see their suffering, but they also suffer. That's unavoidable. But non-violence means we try to minimize violence. But so there's a difference between minimizing violence or striving for non-violence and absolutizing non-violence as a non-negotiable principle. So the Gita is spoken to a warrior who has to fight a war. So the Gita's call for violence is not, the call for war is not a metaphorical call. It is a literal call for violence. But at the same time, that does not mean the Gita is telling every one of us we have to fight wars. So the Gita is not making a universal call for violence. So every one of these principles, there will always be nuances in it. So we are truthful. But then there are, say, if some terrorists are are spree killing some demographic, and we have a friend in that demographic, and that person comes, please save me, and we hide them in our basement, and those terrorists bang on our door. Is he here? No. Speaking truthfully is good, but saving somebody's life is a bigger virtue. So all those 4 principles that are there, the same principle of intent, content, and consequence that I talked about. We look at the content of the action, we also look at why am I doing it? What is going to be the result of it? And based on that, we make decisions. Okay? Thank you. So let me summarize. I not summarize this particular session. So we discussed chapter 18. So I discussed mainly 5 points. We discussed the 18.56 as a transition. So Krishna is building up from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. But he says that you don't have to go through all those paths to come to Bhakti Yoga. From wherever one is, one can practice Bhakti Yoga. So it's like an elevator. Sarva karmani api sada kurvano made pashvaya. Then after that, I discussed about 18.63, where Krishna finishes his message, but Arjuna seeks Krishna's desire. It like Arjuna finishes Krishna defers to Arjuna's desire. Defer means he leaves it to Arjuna's desire. But Arjuna wants to know what is Krishna's desire. And that's what opens the heart of Arjuna, Krishna. So 1864 has 6 emphasizers. That Krishna is opening his heart. And what is the heart that Krishna is opening? He's essentially saying that in 65 we discussed that Krishna is taking the onus on him. Doctor saying that you just take this treatment, I will cure you. And 66 Krishna says that just surrender to me. Then we discussed what does the surrender mean? That Krishna is the ultimate whole to which we belong. So sometimes the various broader wholes we might belong to, they may pull us in different directions. So we focus on the supreme whole Krishna and we connect with him. And in that sense, we discuss the meaning of the word dharma is that give up your conceptions of duty based on your smaller units that you belong to and just surrender to me. Then I discussed about how the Gita is world affirming. Krishna tells Arjuna to Vraja is turn toward the world. Turn to the world and serve. So bhakti has two aspects to it. It is not just that we go towards Krishna, but we understand Krishna exists not just up there, but Krishna exists in the world. In fact, the world exists in Krishna, and therefore that this is also our service to Krishna. So a direct remembrance of Krishna is our sadhana, and using our talents to serve Krishna is our seva. So bhakti is a holistic way of living, where we turn toward the world and away from the world. Then we discussed about the theme of how if somebody, say if Krishna exists above us and what we have is our gift, and what we do with what we have is the gift that we give to Krishna. So if we have this big picture and if we don't have the big picture, so if we just have the small picture, then what happens is, what I have, I feel is insufficient. What I am doing is inadequate. And what I am getting is, again, I'm undervalued basically. So basically here we feel insecure, we may lament, and then we feel undervalued. So I discussed the acronym TIME. Even if we get recognition in the world, but still the problem is that it's temporary, it's insubstantial or insufficient. Then in trying to keep it, we end up doing things which will only get us into further trouble. And what kind of enjoyment is that? So we try to have the big picture, and when we have the big picture, that means we understand that life is like a relay race, and we all have our parts. So we what do? We accept our part, whatever it is, small or big, and then we cultivate commitment to our part, and then we transcend the duality and dissatisfaction by immersion in Krishna. So when we do this, then just as Sanjay's message to Dhritarashtra illustrates, that there is a possibility for happiness even without success. That some people may get worldly success, some may not, even while serving Krishna, but everyone can get that inner absorption and inner enrichment. So the Gita's conclusion, or one way we can understand the Gita's conclusion is, be apart, be not apart. Be a part of Krishna, be not apart from Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
We all meet at 4 p.m. for question and answer. answers, journaling, and the session can go on. 4 p.m. same time.